feature presentation.
Apparently they know I wasn't there.
They don't know. They don't check schedules, nothing.
Well, and our special guest is here. So, Alex, come up there. I'm going to show you who the special guest is. I think you might know this person, but it's going to probably pop up on here. But where is he? Showing up. Hello, Professor Koza.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Doing good.
Alex.
Hi, Professor Koza. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. Thanks so much for joining us. And looks like you're doing well. You're now in the real world. Well, you were in the real world, even when I had you as a student, right?
Yeah, I was in banking, but it was nothing. It was nothing like the private bank with Chase. So certainly very different culture, atmosphere. But you know, your class was a big influence on you know, things that we talk about each and every day at the office. So
That's good to hear. Good to hear. Well, I'm glad you're doing well, and I know my students who are joining us now would be interested in hearing about your process, your journey, how you selected the company you did, what your days are like. You know, all of now that you are so much more advanced than these students at FDU, I'm sure you've got a lot less.
don't give me too much credit now. All right, so yeah, whenever you guys are ready, do you guys want to wait another minute or two, or do you think we're good?
I think we've got just about everybody here. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we've got my group at least. Yeah.
All right. I'll do my little intro and then I'll get you guys going. So the camera again there, and then obviously I'll have the speaker on so you'll be able to hear them to ask any questions, but
Can we turn that monitor so
can we turn it around? Yeah, we can turn it. Yeah. There. Oh. Good enough.
yeah.
All right, just do this. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Wealth Management Advisory Club meeting. I'd just like to say hello to Professor Koza's class for being your special guests here today. This meeting I actually been very, very excited about this whole semester, and for a particular reason, but I'm going to get to that in a second. So we have JPMorgan Chase Co. Are coming in here to speak to us today. More specifically, we have the founder of this club, Alex Trakjovic, coming back to speak to his own club after starting it up 3 years ago. So I'm going to read a little bit about him, and then I'm going to let him pass him off to him. So he works as a private client banker where he manages and grows his book of business consisting of clients that he retains. Consulting his clients, he addresses their aspirations and concerns. Between his partners and himself, he serves as a financial backbone for needs like financial planning, retirement, banking, home lending. And he is an FDU alumni. He's the founder of this club. So again, Alex, from all of us here, without you, this club would never been a thing. So again, thank you for starting this. And again, welcome back to FDU Silberman. And again, let's ask a lot of questions, guys. And let's make this fun and enjoyable. So yeah, Alex, I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. So you guys see me, it looks like it's like.
All right. Should be good.
I'm good, so they can see me.
Yeah, they
It
can
looks
see
like
you.
I'm
They can
looking
see
down
you.
myself.
They can see you. So as long as they can see you, you're good.
Okay. Is there any way to have like a camera like front center or anything like that?
I got this. All right, our live streams, obviously, we just do that. And then the camera obviously is there, so.
Gotcha. Okay. So, how are you guys doing? I'm Alex Trakjovic. I was one of the founders of this club. Professor Koza approached me at the end of my junior, early senior year about establishing this club. We thought it would be influential on the business students as well as helpful for career paths, especially for our younger students that are freshmen, sophomores, trying to find their placement in the industry. So that's why it was my vision for this club to bring in guest speakers, people that work in the industry, to talk about the worldly events happening, what's happening with clients, how they're reacting, and the changes within the markets and the atmosphere, because it's not always about the numbers, but it's about the emotional feelings from clients. And you'll learn that if you want to get involved in the financial investment industry. So just a little bit about my time with FDU. I actually went to CCM my first 2 years, transferred here as a junior. And I've been in banking since I was 18. Not something that I knew I wanted to do. I just saw a teller job that was pretty high paying for the time. So I said, why not? And it fit in with my school schedule. I got my foundations there where I learned, you have to learn a lot about the business documentation, personal documentation, and it really goes on from there. So I got my backbone there. At that point, I worked there pretty much all throughout college, just up until my senior year in with FDU. And that's when I said, oh my God, I'm graduating. I have to get a full-time job. And I knew the bank that I was currently working for wasn't the right place for me because I needed to go bigger. So, you know, just like any other student, I was applying left and right to internships, to jobs. I was getting denied here, getting denied there, a maybe here, a maybe there. And eventually I actually networked with one of my professors here. I don't know if any of you guys have had him yet. His name is Craig Weinstein. He leads one of the classes here, and he's actually a market director for JPMorgan in New York City. So he was able to get me in touch with the wealth management director here in Morris County, and she's the one who got me connected to Sean Smith, my market director here today. And pretty much that interview process looked a little bit like this. Called me at 6 o'clock at night, wasn't expecting a phone call, sent him to voicemail, and he left a voicemail. And he was wanting to talk to me about joining the firm. So I immediately called him back, and we had a discussion, and he wanted me to meet him. So I went in, we sat down. One of the biggest tips of advice I can provide you guys is if you are working in a company that you know you want it to be your future and you do well there, have the proof in the pudding. So if you are outperforming, you're doing very well. I'm not telling you to steal client information, all right? But if you can print out performance figures with percentages or number of assets you bring in, something like that, and this can go into any field. Print it out and have it on hand, because that's exactly what I did when I met Sean. I brought in performance figures. It says on my resume, but the proof is right here. So that's a little tip of mine. But pretty much went up to Sean. It was my senior year. It was my fall semester, and we had a conversation. What did I do? One of his biggest focuses wasn't I an organized person? What did my day-to-day job look like? Breaking it down from when I stepped foot in the office to when I stepped out of the office. What did that look like? Break it down step by step for me. So that was a big part of the interview process. Getting to know me a little bit. Am I personable? Can I hold a conversation outside of work? Am I knowledgeable worldly, right? Can I have discussions around sports, around history, around current events, things of that nature, not just being one-dimensional. Then I said, he liked me and said, okay, you know, we'll talk in the future. And I did advise him. I said, I'm still in school. I'm still full-time. It's my last semester, so that's why I'm really eager to find a career now. Showed him my school schedule. He looked at my school schedule, marked it up a little bit, and I told him this. He's looked at it and he said, this doesn't work. You have 1 week to come back to me and fix this. So what did I have to do? I had a week to fix this. So right before Christmas, a week before Christmas, I was calling up my guidance counselor, one of the heads of the Silberman department. I got all the way up to one of the assistants of the dean to give me an exception for a class. And they ended up approving it because I gave them an ultimatum. You're going to let me drop out before my last semester. That doesn't look great for the graduation rate. Or you're just going to let this one slide, let me take something else in place and substitute the course. They ended up going with the ultimatum of substituting the course. So you have to really push for what you want. And I think that spoke to Sean when he met me being able to change that a week before Christmas. Everyone is away, no one wants to talk to you. Then Through Chase, I was full-time school here, full-time Chase. And what it looks like at Chase is for you to be hired at Chase as a banker, as someone who's sitting down with clients, speaking with clients about their personal relationships, about their business aspirations, their home aspirations, their retirement aspirations, all of the above, you have to be licensed in the industry. Chase is one of the only firms that actually licenses all their bankers in order to hold these conversations, thus showing the representation of how much of an influence JPMorgan Chase has within the industry. Because realistically, most of these firms follow in JPMorgan's footsteps. So one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you from Fairleigh Dickinson, and this was not here when I was with the school, but taking the SIE course, if you want to become an advisor, you want to get involved in financial advice, the SIE is a requirement. You don't need to be sponsored by an institution like a lot of the other licenses. Take that course. I know it's only a 1-credit course. I know they may only have it in the summer or in the winter because it's only a few weeks, but that will put you way ahead of the rest of the market because there's plenty of students that come out with their bachelor, their associates, their bachelors, even their masters. It's a commonplace in this world. Every school has a 4+1 program. But how many students come out with their SIE? That is considered one of the hardest exams for introduction into the industry because it's so broad. It's really not very difficult. You just have to sit down and do it. It takes time. But if you can get that done here, that license is good for 4 years until a firm picks you up. It is worth every moment of your time. And it, like I said, it will absolutely push you ahead of the job market. In regards to a little bit of what we do day-by-day basis at the firm, I think that would be a good time for maybe Veronica. Is that right?
Sure.
So Veronica is my branch manager at the Madison branch.
Good evening, guys. I'm Veronica Campbell. I'm the branch manager over just down the street for the ones that you guys are familiar with, the Madison campus. I manage the Madison office here in JPMorgan Chase. What we do day to day is really help clients when they come into the door with any financial need that they may have. A lot of clients have questions, concerns about what's going on with the markets. There's been a lot of noise lately. So what we do is we talk to them about what's important to them, setting up a plan to help them achieve those goals. And that could vary between home lending, it could be establishing a business, it could be generating more revenue for their business, it could be retirement, it could be someone that just had a lifetime event about just had a baby, got married, and they're looking to send their kids to college and things like that. So what we do is we talk to these clients, and then we have a lot of avenues in the branch that we're able to help these clients with. So Alex, our bankers, were the first line of defense and the relationship with the clients. So we do have a lot of help that work in our branch. So we do have financial advisors, we have home lending advisors, we have business relationship managers that deal with our business clients, and of course, they have me as well as the branch manager to help out. But our goal is really to build that relationship with the client and make it a life relationship, right? Be the go-to person with whatever comes into their life. A lot of our clients go through a lot of changes, and our goal is really to help them with everything and be the only institution that they trust, and they're able to come to Alex and all the bankers with everything else. So when you come into the branch, you'll see bankers, their role also is to reach out proactively to these clients. So clients that also have accounts with us, we proactively reach out to them, build a relationship, see how else we can help. So a lot of the time spent during the branch is proactively calling and building a relationship over the phone, building a relationship for them to come in and meet the partners, see how we can advise and help, and answer questions throughout through the phone as well. So a lot of it is proactively calling clients, scheduling meetings, and also talking to clients that come into the branch. I just, like as Alex mentioned, all of our bankers are licensed, which is great because they're able to go into in-depth conversations about financial planning, They do talk a lot about, what's going on in the market and have a conversation of like, what keeps them up at night. And we've been able to help a lot of clients, especially now with all the environment that we're going through. I don't know what else. Yeah.
So to segue off of that, so my role with the firm, I like to describe myself as a bridge. So if you guys are looking to become investment advisors, financial advisors, I'll be honest, you're going to take a blow to your ego when you graduate. When you graduate, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, and you are fresh in the industry. You think about all you think about is making clients money. That is not the goal and objective of every client. There's a lot of clients that I interact with that just want to be protected, especially in this type of environment. They have their retirement money. They don't want to sit in cash because they know that the markets will come back. And if you're out of the market, you miss out on that rally. But it's not so much about how much you can make the client. It's about how much the client can trust you, right? Everyone is a little bit different, but if you were to compare today to 3 or 4 years ago, everyone was like making as much money as you could. Now we're looking at environment well, what do you think is going to lose the least amount of money? That's a realistic time frame that we're in at this moment, because nobody knows what exactly is going to happen in a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, right? We only have an hour here, so I don't want to get too convoluted. I'm sure you guys have guest speakers talk about what's been going on in the markets. But pretty much, I am their bridge. As the banker, we have the hard part. We have to convince the client to sit down with myself and a JPMorgan partner to have that investment conversation. The easy part is the investment conversation, right? Because the client is there because they wanted to be there. The investment advisor did not convince the client to sit there in that seat. That was the banker's role. And through the banker role, you become the most diversified. You have to know about checking and savings accounts, those interest rates. You have to know about credit cards. You have to understand the business aspect. You have to understand the home lending aspect. This makes us three-dimensional bankers. If you're an advisor and you don't have that support around you as an individual or in a team, you are really going to struggle. And that's why at the firm, it makes the most sense when you become Chase Private Client, when you're involved in private banking, you're surrounded with a team. So as I said in the beginning, I'm the bridge. I'm the one that connects you to whatever you may need or you may not know you need. And I'm the one who brings that three-dimensional approach to the client. Sean, you want to talk about a little bit about JPMorgan Chase's opportunities?
Sure.
What you guys are looking for?
Sure. Good evening. So Sean Smith, I'm the market director of banking, mostly for Morris County. I also have like Somerset County, Central New Jersey. Roughly manage about 100 employees, about $6 billion worth of deposits and investments. I have 40 licensed bankers that work for me, and generally speaking, inside the retail bank, we have tellers. We call them associate bankers. And then there's two types of bankers that we have, which is a relationship banker, as well as a private client banker, which is Alex. And Alex started with the firm as a relationship banker, and then earned his stripes based on his performance to get the opportunity to move up to a private client banker, which ultimately means that there's more compensation and more, opportunity for him, and that he has the ability to carry conversations and client relationships further. There's a different partnership that he has developed with his partners in reference to, wealth management, to our business relationship managers and our home lending advisors. Then of course, branch managers that I have 13 branches and 11 branch managers that work for me. And again, I think when you look at, moving forward from a career perspective, there's something that is your ability to make a decision as an individual producer, which Alex is. And then you look at Veronica, who's a manager, used to be an individual producer, just like myself. that it really does take time for you to develop like leadership skills and kind of understanding in yourself, is that something that really is what you have a passion to do. When you start leading people, it's not necessarily about you and the individual production perspective of it. It is, as an individual leader, you're looking at, caring about the Alexes of the world and waking up in the morning to make sure that the Veronicas and my managers are in position to succeed and that they have the tools to succeed. I'll pause there, and I don't know if we want to switch to like career conversation and things such like that. And I'm going to just start with like career advice that I would give you from a standpoint of just career is, that first and foremost, explore and experience. That I do this all the time, which is like Alex came to me, he really had limited experience, but he was in banking. And I'll give advice to, someone that has some banking experience or no banking experience, but maybe they have partial licenses with SIE, Life, and I'll mention them, like, go visit some branches, not just Chase, go to PNC, go to Bank of America, and experience what happens there. Just go and ask them about questions about credit cards they may offer, checking accounts that they offer, and you'll gain that experience about what the role is, as well as, that all banks in the industry don't do things the same way. So I think you get that experience about what's different between JPMorgan to a PNC to a TD bank. And you could go on and on about the list of other financial firms that are out there. I would even expand upon that to a MetLife, to a New York Life, where an Equitable, where you can go out and that, yes, those folks would hire you potentially right out of college. But ultimately the experience there is much different. So I would encourage you to go ahead and just talk to a lot of folks and be creative with it. That engage in applying to just go apply to like a New York Life, just to see what the experience is going to be from a standpoint of maybe the application process to, what the description of the role is. You could easily go onto LinkedIn and go pull up anybody that works at New York Life and go ahead and say, I'd like to talk to you. Believe me, they'll talk to anybody. So again, it gives you a great experience from that perspective. From a career advice standpoint, I'll mention a couple of things, is that I don't necessarily believe in luck when it comes down to career. I believe in creating opportunities. And you do that with the first step by, well, you made the choice to come to school, to go to a higher educational level. And then you expand upon that by just joining today, by talking to your professors, by talking to, again, a lot of those folks that I mentioned, reaching out to the Alex of the world, to, and I think that's the important part about just gaining those experience, which gains confidence. The last thing I'll leave you with is just be curious. That's one of the reasons why I think I've excelled in what I do, and I feel great about the things that I do for just my team members and the firm. But I'm curious. I'm always asking myself why. Why does a client want to make that decision? Why is Alex making that decision? And why is he thinking the way that he's thinking? And that goes a long way. And I think just life experiences, but just ultimately your career aspirations as well. Let's just be curious in what you're trying to attempt to do. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if we want to go, Alex, and kind of give Stuart that as well.
Yeah, so I don't want to talk just too much more because I'm sure you guys may have questions, concerns. If you're presented with opportunities, to just let us know what we think so we can give you some advice, what your thoughts are. Doesn't matter if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. I was just in your seat just a few years ago. So I know what it's like. I'm going to give Jack my business card. So you guys can feel free to send me questions, shoot me emails with your resume if you think that you're looking for an opportunity. Probably if you're at the senior end, if you're looking for a banking opportunity, because with the internships, I can provide you guys a portal to access to take a look into our internships. I'll be honest, I don't have too much pull when it comes to that. The firm is very selective with their internships, and there's Chase has hundreds of thousands of employees at this point. So I'm just a little guy in the pond. But yeah, so I'll pretty much open it up to questions and answer anything you guys may have.
Anybody have any questions before I ask mine?
When did you graduate from FDU?
Guys, I'll start off real quick to kind of open things up. Thanks so much for being here. I do appreciate it, and the students appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for being here. So maybe I think what would be helpful to this group is to give them some idea of what a career roadmap might look like in the wealth management field. Because clearly you all have had some twists and turns in your career, had different experiences, had some exciting experiences. And if you were to be in your 21-year-old self, what type of advice might you pass on to this group as they get ready to enter the workforce?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I'll add this much is that I think there's, you got to think about transferring your skills from an educational perspective to real life. And from a standpoint of being in wealth management, that I think there's a difference about classroom knowledge to how you go ahead and transition this to, knowledge from an industry perspective. So what I would say is, and I encourage a lot of the folks that come to me that I meet with that don't have a really great understanding of, let's say, the up-to-date, what's going on with market conditions, is encourage them to read, it could be even Yahoo Finance. They put out an everyday kind of description of what is happening in the marketplace. And that I back when I was your old age, like CNBC, it was there, and I used to watch it when I was in my 20s, many moons ago. But the reality of it is, I knew probably 30 to 40%, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in business management. I can understand the terminology, but I really couldn't apply it in the real business world. So but how do you go educate yourself to go down that path to really connect the dot between, what I learned in school to real life kind of conversations about what's really out there and wealth management. I think Alex, to kind of answer the question, I think Alex had mentioned it, is that the SIE and being prepared right out of school with the SIE is extremely important. You separate yourself. Like I have tellers that work for me right now, and I'll flat out tell them that you got to, if you want to, I have 30 people I can choose from. And if you look at an SIE and how many of them have that, it shows me and demonstrates the ability that this is the industry that you really want to be in. And then also it really shows me that you have the knowledge. And the SIE, down to the bare bones of it, really comes down to the fact that it's a demonstrating your ability to pass either the Series 6 or 7. That's ultimately what really it is about. From that point forward, from the last thing I'll say from a career standpoint, I think there's a couple different ways that you would look at, as you prepare, where do I really want to go from like my career standpoint? Alex is in a people business. And what I mean by that is it's face to face. Like your clients are right in front of you. And ultimately that's something that if you're really good people skills and that's what you want to go for with wealth management from a standpoint of a career that you're going to be right in front of clients and it's day-to-day client management. That's one aspect of wealth management. The other one is the aspect of, that whether or not you go down to private banking, but it's asset management to investment banking, those are, you're really supporting the firm's mission. So yes, you're going to have clients, but clients are going to be a little bit different, meaning that it's more on the institutional side where it's business to business. So I think you got to separate where your journey wants to take you. As a salesperson back many years ago that I was, and ultimately if you're doing well and you're managing client relationships the right way with the right integrity, and doing the right thing for your client, ultimately you're going to do well in a face-to-face business. So if you do well, now you start making you start making money because that's how the industry works. It gets harder and harder to figure out how do you transfer those skills to maybe this other line of business. So the reason why I say this is that it really comes down to that journey you go out with right away, which is Alex mentioned, is the same thing as me. When I graduated college, I had no idea. Like banking seemed like the right thing to do, so I went and did it, and I was really good at it based on face-to-face conversations with clients. But a lot of my peers that I graduated with went on to really successful careers where they worked in essentially a business-to-business environment, whether it was investment banking or just in asset management, portfolio management, and things such as that, where you're supporting ultimately all of us that are out in the field, providing the products directly to our clients.
Thank you. One last thing I'll touch on. While you guys are in these classes, all these finance classes, especially if you have a concentration in wealth management program, pay attention. I was not an A student. I was a B student, but I did not have the 4.0 GPA. I didn't even have a 3.5 GPA. I was in the low threes, 3.2 if I remember correctly. But pay attention to your classes. These terms that will come up, like qualified accounts, tax losses, capital gains, capital losses, short-term, long-term, having an idea about tax brackets. These are all things that I promise you will come up. And then in different moments in time, every now and then, all of a sudden you'll see the word coupon rate. That's when interest rates are attractive. So these are all important to have an understanding of, because this is the type of jargon that you will use in the industry. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice while you're in school. Don't just get through the class, actually sit down and take the time with it, because I promise you it will separate you from the pack too, because you're going to pull something out of your pocket you learned from one of your classes that the bankers around you don't know. And then they'll be like, hey, what was that? What did you tell that client? Oh yeah, I learned this in class. Here, let me pull it up and show you. That's really fascinating. So that's what can help separate you in your performance as well.
I think Mitchell, you had a question, but you got interrupted by Goes there. So I don't know if you want to ask your question.
I forgot mine.
Okay, I guess I'll ask my question then. I usually ask, and I think Mitchell will probably quote me on this, I usually ask this question to all of our speakers. Usually within the wealth management field, do you think it's appropriate that someone maybe who go on to get their CFP license or CFA license? Because I've heard from multiple speakers, like, oh, get CFA, get CFP, get both. But like, what's your take on it?
It depends on where you want to go, right? CFA is extremely analytical. You analyze things down to the bone. CFA is typically the portfolio manager route. Just because you're an advisor does not mean you're a portfolio manager, right? If you guys get into this role, you'll end up finding that clients with larger balances don't necessarily want their financial advisor managing the individual investments, because a client can have a portfolio with 100 stocks. That same financial advisor now has to sit down with 5 other clients that day that take an hour long each, along with picking up the phone, calling clients. That takes another 2 hours of their day, and then just managing expectations of clients, being proactive with your clients and addressing concerns, thoughts. There's many hats an advisor has to wear. So that's why I think the CFP would be more applicable, because it has a bit more of the humanitarian side of it. The CFA, like I said, if you want to be a portfolio manager, you want to be in charge of a mutual fund, or you want to be in charge of an ETF, or these specialized portfolios that are intended for these clients with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, that's where a CFA could be really applicable. But in my opinion, I think the CFP would be the best route. and with your wealth management concentration here, that's key. That's key. Take advantage of that, because if you don't, you end up forgetting the material or you lose the material, and then you have to retake the courses for the CFP anyways.
Do that. Anyone else with any other questions? You guys can put them in the chat. I have no problem reading them out to you. Really, no problem with that. I'll ask this one. What was your favorite FDU Silver moment?
My favorite FDU Silberman moment. Gotta be honest, I wasn't on campus very much outside of the classrooms. So for me, it was probably just taking in the experiences with some of the professors that I had, like Professor Koza, doing the investment challenge with him, and the way Professor Koza structured his classes were fairly different than a lot of the professors around campus. We did a lot of talking on current events and a little bit less in just diving your nose into the books. We talked about worldly events that was taking place and things that even Professor Koza, you were encountering at that point. So that was like the highlights of my FDU, because I didn't do sports here. I just worked, came to school, drove home. I had like 12-hour day each day while at school. So
Same with me. What would be I know you probably asked this question before, but what would be the one piece of advice that you would want to give yourself? If you had to go back in time, back when you were maybe like a junior or maybe like a senior, what would be the one piece of advice you want to give your past self that you would have done?
me personally?
Yeah.
Me personally? Maybe just because fortunately, I think I did a lot of things right. Because when you look at some of my age versus other people, I'd like to think that I'm a bit more ahead of other people. So one thing that I would have done a little bit differently would have been, like I said, I wasn't the best student in school. I would have probably focused in a little bit more and kept my materials, because what I mentioned to you before about the CFP thing, I'm one of the students that didn't keep their materials. So I'm qualified to take the CFP now, but I don't have the materials, don't remember. So now I have to take refresher courses on. So that was probably my biggest mistake. I think I've done everything right. Otherwise, I did not, quote unquote, I also did not take part in internships. I couldn't afford it. A lot of internships don't pay. I had to work a day-to-day job. It's what my household required. So that's why I started working part-time, near full-time, right out of high school. And so if you're someone that feels like you're not going to get anywhere because you don't have an internship, don't feel that way, because I never did either. And then on top of it, I'd like to think employers or individuals hiring employees don't always like to see a student go through 6, 7 different internships over the course of their college. Why didn't they ever stay at one? I think that might be a question that they ask themselves.
So I do have a couple of questions that our members that couldn't make here today. They want me to ask you this. But what are some common mistakes people make when it comes to wealth management?
Do you guys want to track it down?
Yeah, it's crazy as it sounds in the times that we have right now, is not taking enough risk. And not following kind of what what if you look at traditional past performance is always an indication of future results. How many times you heard that? But it is so true. And that we're in a time right now that, especially over the last 2 weeks, and you hear all the noise about the banking industry and what's the impact of the rate environment, how does it impact banks, and not all banks are created equal, and that their balance sheets have a little bit more risk on it and whatnot, which has created a lot more anxiety that a lot of folks sit on the sideline right now. And I just, if you look at your time horizon and how you plan, too many clients take the other side of the risk, which right now is that you look at, I'll give you an example. We have a 3-month CD right now that pays 4%. The reality is after you pay taxes And the mere fact that the rate of inflation, well, we'll find out Friday more, but it's like 5%. So by the time the CD came due, you just lost money. And then ultimately it's because you didn't necessarily go ahead and get advice. There's only two ways to invest in quite frankly, anywhere in the world. It's either you're going to do it yourself, self-directed, or you're going to get advice. You know, so it really is kind of that balance that a lot of folks take, and that yes, if you're going to get advice, you got to accept the mere fact that you're going to pay a fee to get advice. But ultimately, time and time again, that's our business is advice. And but time and time again, when you look at that, it is outperformed, dramatically outperformed over time. Anyone that performs from a self-directed standpoint, you know, but a lot of clients, they like to do both, and that's okay. But I would just say, and I'll go back to it, I think most mistakes that clients make is that they don't take enough risk.
All right.
As crazy as that sounds in today's environment.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Another question to the ag. Can you speak to the role of diversification in a successful wealth management strategy?
Sorry, repeat that?
How big of a role does diversification play into a successful wealth management strategy?
Diversification is extremely important. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the charts or diagrams today to present you guys, because I know we were limited on time. I wanted you guys to have a chance to speak, but there's so many different charts, statistics. You can just Google them on why you should have diversification, because just out of the most basic sense of diversification, bonds and equities. When equities go up, that's when bonds typically come down. But how does it work the opposite way? When the equities start going down, the bonds go up. Now, equities in nature are more aggressive than bonds. So that's why when you're younger, you know, it's recommended to have 100% equities portfolio in your 20s. And then as you get older, you start tapering that out to 80, 75, 65, 60, 50, 50, 40, and then in your later part of life, when you're just looking for capital preservation, that would be, you know, anywhere between 15 to 35%, depending where you are. But in regards to different sectors, you can see the importance of diversification. Last year, energy was the only positive performing sector in the entire market. We had portfolios that were up, almost up for the entire year. Towards the end of the year, they slipped a little bit, but it lost like 2% over the course of the entire year last year, when the general market was down 20%. This year, you see financials taking a hit because of 3 catastrophic bank failures. So having overall diversification in your portfolios is extremely important, because what ends up leading the market down does not always lead the market back up. And that you can go into large cap, mid cap, small cap, international, emerging markets, stuff like that.
So I'm going to chat on that, Jack, because I think it's very interesting about, if you look back since really like 2009, 2010, the biggest challenge for financial advisors today is you really haven't had a whole lot of fixed income conversations in the last 10 years. You know, so we have developed an entire industry now that really doesn't have this historical kind of balance of how they diversify or asset allocation based on time horizons and so on and so on, because of the mere fact that we really haven't talked about it much.
Right.
You know, so the rate environment has really kind of created this anomaly that has really been challenging for financial advisors, because now that they're forced to have these fixed income conversations, and they're not all really that prepared for it. So I think when you look at your question as diversification from a client perspective, I think it's just as important for advisors to really understand how they're prepared to provide a diversified conversation across all types of different asset classes.
That's great to hear that. Question about goals, like how do you balance short-term and long-term goals in a wealth management plan?
Veronica, do you want to
Sure. Yeah, so with short-term goals and long-term goals, obviously we like to have a conversation with our clients to see how much money do they have, what is their short-term goals? It's different for every person. Of course, short-term, we think about less than 3 years really when it comes to investing. We want to make sure we have a long time horizon when we recommend someone to go into the market and invest. But there's different avenues also in investing that we can put a client that's looking to purchase a home within the next 2 years that is very safe and conservative, and they can still get a good rate of return. But it's important for us to obviously include everything that the client is interested in and what they want to accomplish in the next 6 months. What do they want to accomplish in the next, 2 years, 3 years, and 30 years from now, which may be sending someone to college or retirement from 30 years. But we like to, of course, holistically take a look at all those and based on that time horizon, make recommendations on what they're investing, depending if they're going to sit a little bit more in cash or they're going to go into the markets very heavily, because we have some time. If we have 15 years, we have some time to recover in case the markets are volatile and things like that. So we consider all of that. That comes through conversation, and some avenues may be on the bank side compared to the wealth management side.
You got 2 more questions here. Can you discuss the impact of inflation on wealth management and how to mitigate its effects?
Absolutely. So inflation it's popped its ugly head out in recent years. Advisors have always had a difficult time explaining to especially younger clientele, individuals in there. Really, they're anywhere from in their 30s or 40s, because they were too young to even experience what real inflation was. Because we really haven't seen it. We struggled to keep it at 2% for decades at this point. But inflation over time is extremely corrosive, which is why Sean was going into earlier, why clients do not take enough risk when they're younger, because inflation does catch up, and then you have these inflation rallies that we're now seeing present day. When explaining and trying to have a discussion around mitigating the impact of inflation, you have to lay it out in regards to, I go from the most conservative approach to the most aggressive approach. So for example, Sean laid out earlier, you decide to do a 3-month CD at 4%. Well, that 4% CD is an annualized yield. So you really earn 1% in 3 months. Now, if you do that CD for one time, and then put your money back into cash sitting in a savings account earning 0.01, well, you made 1%, but guess what? You guaranteed yourself a loss of 4%. Because inflation, let's say, putting a number up is 5%. So you just guaranteed yourself a loss of 4%. Now, the same thing goes towards investment products, things like fixed income, like bonds, or investment strategies like fixed annuities. All you're doing is you're hedging your losses. You don't have any real returns. And that's where the equities portion comes into play of, okay, well, we should take a portion of your money and take a little risk. For example, a balanced portfolio. A balanced portfolio is something that's considered 40% bonds, 60% equities. Balanced portfolio in a rolling time period from 1950, every 5 years, you can throw a dart at 1955, 1956, 1987. You roll that clock back 5 years, a balanced portfolio has never lost value. That's a really important statement for clients to understand the value of a time horizon, a 5-year time horizon, and how they can take on risk, but the concept of time lessens that risk that you take.
Do you have any last minute questions before I ask the final question? You guys can put in the chat. You guys can unmute yourselves.
I have a question. It might be off topic.
Sure.
I just wanted to know what you guys think about the current bank crisis. Like, do you think it was a good move on First Citizens Bank?
You want to go with that one, Sean?
Well,
I was just talking about this earlier today.
it's a wickedly complicated scenario. This is my personal opinion. This is nothing that should be represented by where we work. But I think if you look at what First Citizens did is that, first and foremost, they got a buyout plan, so somebody absorbed all the bad assets. They essentially kept all the good ones. That's why if you looked at their stock that day that they made the announcement, it was up like 25%, like even before market open. And a lot of that was exactly in that agreement. You know, how they worked that out, who knows? You know, that, but it did sound like they kind of got some type of support from the federal government to buy up some of those bad assets. You know, how this works out for them long term, who knows? You know, that I think the biggest thing that we all learned during this whole kind of last 2.5 weeks is, you know, the real question is did the federal government do the right thing by essentially sitting there saying all the deposits we're going to take care of them? So basically abolish like FDIC insurance for one bank in one circumstance. I think that's probably the biggest outcome with this, and that ultimately, if you really look at it, they had to. They had to. If they didn't step in and kind of calm down the seas, ultimately you would have had a huge bank run because the confidence in other regional and local banks was definitely in real trouble. Even though that the decisions that they just came out with a report today, and I'm not quite sure who was one cited on it, that the decisions that management made at SVB was essentially the main reasons why the firm doesn't exist today. You know, and that when they made the decision to go sell off bond assets in their portfolio, and then it became public, and then the run on the bank, and the show was over. Like I knew it then alone that they were not going to survive. It was impossible to. But if you really look at the bigger overall 40,000 feet kind of idea, was really when the federal government stepped in and really made statements around FDIC. And you can sit there and debate whether or not that was right or wrong. I personally, I think it was the right thing, because it would have been really bad news for we would really not be in the same situation today, because the bank failures for folks that probably didn't deserve to go down, they would have went down. You know, so it was the right thing to do. I also think that, you know, in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we just sit here and say, when the noise is over, we probably are in a lot better shape. And that's, you just wait for the noise to go over. And that's essentially what you're starting to see now, is a lot of the noise is coming out of what happened with SVB and some other banks as well.
Awesome question.
Thank you.
All right, so if no one else has any other questions, that's my last question. I don't know, I think just by faces, I know some of you are accounting majors, some of you are finance majors, some accounting majors. But what would be the one piece of advice you want to give to someone, even to someone who's here tonight, who is thinking about maybe going down the wealth management major or minor, or possibly going into career wealth management? What would be the one piece of advice you would want to give?
So for me, it's alluded to what Sean said earlier. Explore your avenues. I've been a nerd when it comes to banking and finance for a long time. When I was in college, I was applying for credit cards just to get the incentive, and then I would stop using it to pay for my college books. I used to go to banks to open up an account, switch my direct deposit over to get the incentive, and then I'd close it in 6 months. I was a bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, but through exploring those other banks kind of allowed me to see my opportunities. And then speak to your peers, your professors, speak to people that are older than you that work in the business. Working in the insurance business is totally different than working in the banking industry. It has, both sides have their pros and cons. In insurance business, you could become an investment advisor faster. You could become a financial advisor faster in the insurance business. You start off with your friends and your family. How many of them can you onboard? You do well there. Okay, now let's get you with the cold calls. How many people can you get in touch with that agree to sit down with you? In the banking world, in my opinion, it's the easier route. It may take a little bit more time, but you can afford to make those mistakes when speaking to a client, because at the end of the day, just because you maybe stuttered on the phone, or you misrepresented a current event, doesn't mean they're closing their accounts at Chase. They're still going to bank with Chase, and you can always revisit them at a later date. So when you step into the role, for example, I was not good at cold call. I was not good at calling a Chase at the beginning. I didn't do much at my other bank. It was something that I put a lot of emphasis on over my first year there. And I like to think I'm pretty good at it at this point. It's how I conduct a lot of my business at this point. I've always been good face to face, but it's about that career. It's about that development as we are in sales, as a sales individual, and learning what works and then what doesn't work when speaking with clients. When you should be aggressive, when you should use jargon, when you shouldn't use jargon, when you need to pull the heartstrings for a particular topic. You can make those mistakes now, but not have it impact your pockets.
Yeah, I would say, for someone that wants to go into the wealth management, explore, other companies, like take your parents to a financial advisor so they can do a whole financial plan, learn about, how Social Security is going to impact them, how long-term care is going to impact them, taxes for them and things like that. Of course, you're very young and your financial plan is going to look very different than your parents will, but explore those options. That way you can compare those financial plans and see if that's something that you are passionate about and you really want to do. Go to different financial institutions and see how, a JPMorgan will do a financial plan compared to a Merrill Lynch, for an example. I would say, take a friend with you, take a parent with you, and ask a lot of questions. Challenge the advisor for you to learn that. And also, I would say a piece of advice that I can give you is like get involved, network. You already took the first step by joining this club, like get more involved in school, reach out to all of these speakers, reach out to us, like use this as a resource, use everyone that comes to speak here as a resource, start a conversation, ask questions, like the opportunities will come up, get a mentor. I think that's extremely important. Have them, listen to an interview, do a mock interview with them, have your resume be looked by other professors, by everyone else, like use your resource. I think that will help you long term.
All right. Well, if that is it. If anyone else has any other questions, Alex, thank you so much for coming back to speak with the club. And then, if anyone has any other questions or comments, please, please feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with all these people on LinkedIn. And I'll probably send out this business card. Our next weekly email we'll send out on Sunday. But with that being said, if no one has other questions, you guys are free to go. Great rest of your day, and then we'll see you all Thursday for when we have UBS coming. So again, thank you guys so much. Great rest of your day, and
Turn it on.